I'm just so pleased about our next presenter. It's Dr. Nancy Carlsson-Paige, and she's going to be talking about consumer culture and the obstacles parents face. Dr. Carlsson-Paige is a professor at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She's a longtime friend and supporter of CCFC and is the author of a brand new, just really wonderful book that's called Taking Back Childhood, Helping Your Kids Thrive in a Fast-Paced, Media-Saturated, Violence-Filled World.
Hello, everyone. Whoops, I'm going to see if you can hear me without my having to hold this. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Hi. Well, we're coming towards the end of what's been a really provocative and interesting conference. And some themes have emerged and repeatedly. One of them is social change. We just saw a beautiful example of it. And, you know, I've had a lot of conversations in my family recently about social change. And I think and we had a good discussion this morning actually about capitalism and how to use CCFC. And one of the things I've come to feel is that there isn't one right way to do social change, and I don't want to get trapped into, well, we have to actually take on the capitalist system, or we have to just go for one single issue. I think everything everybody does is valuable and is contributing to moving us in the direction we want to go. And just like Diane says, if you take one step, if you're on an airplane, in fact, I just thought of that, but a mother wrote me saying that a violent movie, it was actually The Bourne Ultimatum, interestingly, was shown on an airplane. Come to find out there aren't regulations on airplanes for what they can show. So her 2- and 5-year-old children were seeing this violent movie that they never should have seen, and she was horrified, and she was taking all these steps to try to get them to turn it off on the plane, and they wouldn't. But she was fighting and speaking out and arguing against it. And I say anything you can do anywhere. That's not to say we shouldn't have a strategy and a plan for the organizations we're working with, but everything that we can do anywhere we are, where we are unhappy with what we're seeing and we don't agree with it, we should speak out. So Susan asked me to talk about parents, and I'm happy to talk about parents. For the last several years, I've been devoting most of my professional work to talking with parents and children about living in a media-saturated, commercialized world. So there are several things that stand out to me. Parents struggle, without a doubt. Many of the interviews I interviewed probably 70 parents in depth, were touching, you know, because of what people are dealing with. And I'll just give you a little picture of that. One mother, whose name is Inez, she lives in rural New Hampshire. They don't have TV upstairs. They have one down in their basement, and they don't watch it much. And she has a 7-year-old boy, Paul. And she told me one Saturday, he went down, he plays in the basement. He went down there to play, and she went down to kind of check on him, and he had turned the TV on, and on his own he had found some channel, who knows what, and it was female mud wrestling. Did you know it was 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon, and the women were fighting in the mud and had pulled each other's bra tops off and just had bikini bottoms on with the mud and rolling around and wrestling. Did you ever hear? And Inez was in tears in the interview saying, I didn't even know this kind of thing could be on television in the middle of the day. And I didn't know I had to be so vigilant and be so careful, and I'll make changes now. But it's this feeling of, you know, it's a feeling of powerlessness I frequently heard. What it taps into, I think, is this deep need parents have to protect children. It's a very human thing that we all have, and I think it gets eroded for parents by what's happening in the culture because they can't really protect their kids and feel undermined in a profound way by that. Beverly lives in an urban area and told me that her son, Nick, who is 12, said to her, "I want to get a video game console because nobody wants to come over and play at my house because I don't have any video games." So they went around and around about it and finally agreed, okay, we can get video games if they don't have violence and they're not sexist. They had agreed. So they ordered the PlayStation. Here you go. It arrived and there was this complimentary violent video that came with it. And then Dawn, who has a 4-year-old little boy, told me they don't watch TV at home, but her little boy goes to preschool where there is another little boy named Dante who spends every afternoon with his sister who's babysitting because both parents work, and she watches The Matrix over and over. It's a very violent movie that she loves. So this little boy was seeing The Matrix and was traumatized by it, basically, and was telling Dawn's little boy constantly about it, and he was getting, nervous and anxious just from hearing about it from someone, even though he never saw it. So those are some of the kinds of stories that I've heard from parents. We've been talking a lot about living in a country where we don't take care of our children, and actually I was going to tell you all about that UNICEF report, so Tim took care of that for me. But yes, I saw that, and I did write about that in my book. And on one hand it shocked me, and in another way it didn't, because I kind of know, but we're number 20 out of 21 of the world's richest nations for how we care for our children. It's kind of amazing when you see there's no relationship between a country's wealth and caring for the well-being of children, and it's because of all the values we've been discussing. Parents also aren't supported in our country. Parents today are working longer and harder than parents did a generation ago. First of all, most families have 2 working parents now, and the average worker works 167 hours more a year, which is the equivalent of a month, just to keep income steady. People aren't doing any better economically, but the sense that life is fast-paced and overwhelming isn't a myth. It's very real. That people work. In fact, I heard on NPR the other day, it was like the average American worker works 8.5 weeks longer a year than the average European worker. It's like this isn't a quality of life. But when parents are working that hard, it opens the door for the impact of media and commercialized culture to enter in and affect their children. I mean, it's the loss of parental attention and closeness on one side, and a culture, an outside culture with hostile values really entering in, and they're in a reciprocal relationship. I've been listening to the candidates and to see if who are running for president, to see if anybody talks about this, and I'm very, I'm really happy about a lot of the positions that Barack Obama takes. But on this issue, when he's asked about the media and violence in the media, I don't know if you've heard him, but he says 2 things. He says, 1, parents need to take more responsibility. And I mean, just from what I just told you, it's impossible. And 2, he says, I'm not in favor of censorship, which I think the policy people in the room, is that like code for corporate, free speech, censorship? It's like the shortened way of saying it, like we're going to protect corporations to be able to do what they want. So, I mean, he's probably the most progressive of our candidates. So, we have our work cut out for us in terms of getting to people in power and helping them understand the issues that this organization is promoting, which mainly to me